Okay, well, I think yes, we are on YouTube. We are online now. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Worldscope. It's been a while. I miss everyone. I'm so excited that my blood pressure getting sky high at this moment. I have tried to meditate, calm myself down, and deep breath because every day when I read news, I just want to shout. I just want to shout. I think many people share the same experience. I don't know how you guys keep staying in the calm. You have to teach me. Well, today we have Luisa, Liz, Leanne, Grace, Nando, Julie, Maria, and Anna, and Mark may be joining us very soon. So, well, what's wrong with this word? Let me share something with you. I was writing something couple months ago. I say this is insane. I couldn't keep it up. And the dear friend Lin Bell write email to me say, yeah, we are expecting this, but we didn't expecting this coming this fast. Yeah,
It's the cruelty. It's do what I want. I'll grab what I can, and it is so primal that we
it,
don't expect.
but
Grab
I
what I
think
want, do what I will, all these immediate verbs of action.
I think it's very interesting what you say, Luisa, because we have to understand maybe everyone feel insecure. And for some people, their instinct is protect myself and grab everything I can to protect myself. Maybe that's how they react. We have to understand. Once we understand that, we maybe will say, okay, I understand, but I still want to shout, what's wrong with you guys?
Isn't it Trumpism?
Let's
Isn't it Trumpism? What's it, throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. I mean, the Jupiter in Gemini, it's just so much coming at us. The news, I mean, how can you keep track of it? I mean, it's so fast flowing. It's unbelievable, actually. I think that idea of throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks is very much Trump's, Trumpism. That's how it works, I mean.
Well, yep.
Can I just add, though, I think that one thing that people overlook, we've got Trump, and he's doing his, 5-year-old, 12-year-old, please, say thank you to me on bended knee and give me gold shiny things. But then we have three factions around Trump. We've got the techno-fascists like Elon Musk. We've got the whatever I don't know, let's call them jawbreakers like Steve Bannon. And then we have the congressional Republicans. So the chaos is actually coming from these three groups that are infighting between them all. And then you've got this live wire Trump who's listening to them all, but not in any coherent fashion. So I think that's a big part of the issue here.
Yeah, now, so we come to what we're going to do and how are we going to prepare ourselves? So I will invite Luisa to start.
Okay. I was looking at the I was looking at let me share the screen.
Yes, please.
Okay, let me share screen. Okay, where are you? I always have problems with this thing, as you know.
No worry, we have a very easy start.
Yeah, there you go. It's
we are not seeing it. Yeah.
No, you're not seeing it because I'm totally not here.
Don't worry.
I'm totally not here. It's showing my screen, and I wanted to share the PowerPoint, but it doesn't matter.
Oh,
because
here we are.
Yeah, something. Yes,
it doesn't matter because I have the ingress like the sun ingress. That's it. Okay, there you go. Okay, you got it.
Yes, we got it.
We got it. So
weird. But what's the totally black out things there? Maybe you have the
This is
move
the
sun.
lunar eclipse manifest.
It's the leftover from the eclipse.
I have no idea. I have no idea. Don't ask me. Don't ask me.
He delays some
Eclipse of the
charge into the
screen going on
screen.
here,
Are
Louisa.
you able
He
to see the
delays.
chart?
Yes,
Oh.
I'm able to do. You want the Aries Ingress chart from Washington, right?
Yes, this is it.
Okay, I'm going to make one for you. I'm going to make one for you.
I've got it up, Rod, if you want. Oh, we can see it now.
There it is.
We can see it.
But then it's gone.
It's gone. Okay. How about Jolie? Jolie, you say you have it.
I've got it up. I can share it right now.
Okay.
The only thing I want to obviously say with the caveat here is I apologize. It is in whole sign. So
Yeah.
there you
That's
go.
all right. Thank you.
Oh no. Can we have a normal, not whole sign one though, please?
That's all right. That's all right. Louisa, start it.
I can change it to
And then-
Placidus if you like. Will that help?
And there's a lot of, it's a bit, yeah. Could you, do you mind?
I'll change it to Placidus for you. There you go.
Ah,
I mean, the main point here,
Yes.
the main point here is that we have Uranus on the IC. We have Pluto on the ascendant. So that's already a start. And then we have Mars out of bounds and we have the moon out of bounds. Okay, so that's already an unsettling chart. You look at this and you feel more unsettled because Uranus on the IC shows a restlessness and this grabbing of power of Pluto that Jody was talking about. So I think this is a very unsettling chart to start with. And then we can move on and look at other stuff. But right there, it's unsettling. And then would you guys like to comment how unsettling it is? With Neptune on the N.A.T.O degree, I mean, come on, help me out here. It's unsettling.
It completely is. I agree with you. And I think for me, it's quite interesting because looking at it from a whole sign perspective, the sun is in the third house. But regardless, even in Placidus, it's in the second house. So what we're seeing, I think, through both charts is, the power of the US. In whole sign, it's in a cadent house. In Placidus, it's still not angular. So there is a weakness there in terms of the projection of US power, for sure. And then again, what I find interesting is that the moon representing the people in whole sign, it's in the 11th. Here, of course, it's in the 10th and it's right next to Juno. So of course I wanted to pull Leanne in here. I have your fabulous book. Thank you very much. Got it for my birthday. But I just think it's really interesting because I think there is a real strong growing movement and backlash. You're getting all this, certainly on X Twitter, you're getting all this like a buyer's remorse with people who voted for Trump.
do you know what I think? House is the ruling party, isn't it? It's the people that are in power. So the moon you can almost think the moon represents the people. It rules the sun in the US chart. And there's that long journey of Mars now through Cancer, through the 8th house. I get a feeling there that there is something cooking, not just within Parliament, or not within Parliament, but within the party, the ruling party, i.e. the Republican Party, but also among people themselves, the common people, if you like. Because, obviously, if there's a trade war, which looks like is happening or kicking off, this will affect the people who voted him into power. But I find it a very sluggish chart. I mean, there's a lot of mutable planets here, which are not very good for stability, and yet there's a fixed sign on the ascendant. So there is like Pluto on the ascendant as well, wanting to put a marker in the sand and be really strong, which is what Trump is constantly trying to show himself, project himself as this really strong leader. But at the same time, the chart is very sluggish. There's not a lot of hard aspects in there. It's all sort of, a lot of mutables. Yeah, and a lot of retrogrades in there as well, which I think are really important in this chart, particularly if you look at particularly the, sort of 9, 10 degrees of Aries, which is popping up already for weeks in a lot of the big things that have been happening. So yeah, it's all about the economy, stupid, as well, isn't it? That big second house there. And that is all rocking the boat at the moment, I think, over there, big time. And will, as you said, Louisa, with Uranus on the IC, it's starting to get a bit rocky over there.
Yeah. The end.
I just look at the anaretic Neptune conjunct the sun, and I just think there's a complete lack of faith building more and more in leadership and a lack of trust. And the way leadership manipulates whatever they wish to manipulate to get what they want, which very much ties in with what Louisa was saying earlier. But I think that Uranus on the IC, yes, there's certainly a restlessness, but I think that's going to come from within. I think it's going to come from the population, from people within, from the bottom up. People have had enough of the political power abusing their positions of power and making wrong decisions and misinformed and just bizarre decisions time and time again. And yeah, I think it's very much going to be about trade wars and cyber wars going forward, and I'm going to mention that a little bit later. But if you look at that Neptune in this ingress chart, the eclipse later this year in the autumn picks that up, doesn't it? The eclipse is going to be at 29 across the 29 Pisces Aries axes. So, sorry, Pisces Virgo axes. So yeah, I think there's I don't know, I don't think it looks particularly strong for leadership actually with that anaretic Neptune.
No.
I just think there's a lot of flip-flopping and a lot of confusion and doubt. There's so much doubt from people, and every day you wake up to the news and you're like, you couldn't make it up. You couldn't write this story. You could not imagine what is actually happening in reality with politics. So I think that anaretic Neptune, which is going to be triggered, again and again this year, next to that sun, we really need to keep an eye on. And Juno as well. Yep, Juno will be involved in the trade wars, but it's going to be about people's rights as well, and people's rights in the international global sphere. And people are sick to death of having their rights defined or molded by those people in the positions of power that people are losing faith in. Yeah.
Can I just mention as a quick note, I just read a story in the US at the moment. If you are withdrawing or depositing $10,000 or more, you have to fill out a form, a CTR. Well, across 30 different zip codes in the state of California and Texas, they have now reduced that amount to 200. Wow. If you withdraw $200 from your bank account, you have to fill out a form. So it's getting just Looney Tunes. Yeah.
Louisa.
I can take another few comments on that, because I'm thinking a fixed ascendant here with the Aries Ingress, which means this is for the whole year. The classic way of looking at it. So it's a kind of a very fixed sort of Aries Ingress. And what's interesting is the Moon-Jupiter opposition, which is approaching, because that actually falls over, if you put it the Sibley chart, it's the ascendant-descendant axis. So it's kind of like really, the open enemy, the Jupiter in the 7th of the Sibley chart. So it also ties in with the ascendant and descendant, the reverse for the UK Ingress, Aries Ingress. So yeah, it's kind of fixed in a way, but it's fixed in a very shifting sands sort of setting.
Yeah, so I'll hand this back to Louisa.
Yeah.
I don't know what I did with my computer. But in 9 days later, we have the new moon in Aries.
Yes.
And the new moon in Aries has Mars on the IC for Washington.
Yes, indeed.
And then the Neptune Ingress has Mars on the IC. I was not very, I wasn't big on the ingress o- of of very slow moving planets. I wasn't big on that. But then with the last ingress of Neptune in Pisces, when I looked many years later, I noticed that Chiron whose line on the astrocartography map was straight through Yuhan. Obviously, it didn't mean a thing then. It now meant something.
Mm-hmm.
So now I looked at the Neptune ingress for Washington, and again, the same thing as the new moon. Mars is on the IC,
Yeah.
and it's still out of bounds. I know it's in Cancer, I know, but it has a feel that something is wrong with the land. There's something wrong, and then
Uh-huh.
uh, and especially for the Americans, the date 861, which
Mm.
is exactly one Neptune orbit, means something. That's when the Civil War started,
It's
and
not the first time I heard about astrologer mention similar things that with the Neptune in Aries and also, several
Civil War
coincidence.
The Civil
Yep.
War started with Neptune still in Pisces, right
Uh-huh.
at the very end, at
Yeah.
59, with
Yeah.
an attack in a fort in South Carolina. And then the
Mm-hmm.
first big battle was already with Neptune. It's called the Bull Run.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it started, it had Neptune in Aries.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
with all these Mars, uh, on the IC, it's unsettling me in the sense that for the whole year, because the chart, as Liz said, it's valid for the whole year. This is not something that goes away in 3 months. It's a fixed sign on the ascendant. This Mars is going to get more inflamed and more inflamed. So I think there is a possibility of civil unrest.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
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 It's going to be from the inside. Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely. Well, I mean, this is a little bit. I mean, we can expect, to be honest, we can expect. Anna, Anna, please.
Yes, I was watching the Jupiter in the fourth house that it reflects this expansion, desire of trying to annex many territories to USA. And the nodal axis, I think it will be impacted in the solar eclipse of September, which will be held in the last degree of Virgo, but in front will be Saturn. And yes, Saturn will be, so it will be close to the Neptune of this chart.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It will take the axis, I mean. It will take the
Yeah.
axis. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that many things will come up during these months. Thank you.
And it's very interesting from the economic view. We know at this moment all the major index decline is coming down. Is coming down. And one thing is very interesting because so many not astrologers, no, so many economics are expecting they lower the interest rate. But I mean, this is what I learned from the Christine Skinner. She said, "Look, that Neptune right next to the North Node.
Node,
When
yes.
yeah, and when every time and then the Neptune is moving into the Aries. So there's two factors. One is the Neptune impact. The Neptune is bubble. Everything's bubble up. How could you bring the interest rate down? And today I just read the news say no, there's no chance for the Fed to bring the interest down. Okay, Nando, yes, please.
I just found it interesting to see that the Mars dispositor of the Ingress, it's in the sixth house. So Mars is the military, and the sixth house is the public servant, the military as well, and public servant. So although it's in Cancer, it's a little it's in the fall, right? So we have heard about this passive aggressive behavior from the military or some service, public servants that are not following orders or whatever, So I think that we are going to and that's a dispositor of the president, the son. So it will be interesting to watch that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think this Aries Ingress from that view is kind of a very active and slightly worrying. Especially, you can see that Pluto is. I know it's not right on ascendant, but it's not far from ascendant neither. So, that is, I think, and there is many things because Trump is traveling this country, that country, nearly all around the world. And I think we will come back to that and later, we will back to NATO, Ukraine. So how about we discuss a little bit about EU's future?
Just one
Shall
point,
we?
Rod, before
Yeah.
we move on.
Yeah, Jolie,
And that
yes.
is with the nodal axis, which I'm absolutely fascinated by.
Yeah.
Having it fall across the second and eighth houses speaks directly, I think, to the financial power of the US. We do have President Trump saying, can't believe I'm saying that, President Trump, but anyway, we have Trump saying that when he's been asked, will there be a recession? He doesn't rule it out because he knows very well, that part of what the people around him are feeding him is that, yes, there might be some pain to get to where we want to go. And I think, given that this is a fixed chart, good for the whole year, as Liz said, that South Node in the eighth house is absolutely saying that the US is looking at a recession this year. 100%.
Yeah.
And then you have to wonder, because I mean, all of the big astrologers have all been going on about when we get, Uranus into Gemini and we get the grand trines, with this is, I think it's Andre Barbeau said, that this is one of the best times in the world's history, and from where we are now, this will all be coming up just as Trump's coming to the end of this. Maybe we're just going to be going, oh, hallelujah, his time is
No.
Maybe that's the lift that we're going to get or something.
Well, Pluto is involved. You have to go through the dawn and then you can fly high. And I apologize. I make a slightly mistake. In our plan, I was planning to invite Maria. We will stay in a similar region. I was invited Maria to talk about Aries Ingress chart from Argentina. And then we will move to EU and joined by the Ukraine and NATO. All right. So Maria.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, everybody. Mine is very, very short. I just wanted to look at the Aries Ingress for my country. You might not know, but after 70 years of a kind of government that tended towards the left, 15 months ago, Argentina chose a president that is to the far right. So this is something that is completely different from what we've been living for the last 70 years. And I looked at the Aries Ingress. I always remember, I like traditional astrology, the true time, this is Ramsay, from whence judgment is to be raised for the exact knowledge and prediction of future events is the first point of or minute of Aries. So this is the Aries Ingress for the capital city of Argentina. This is Buenos Aires. And I always look for connections between the Ingress and the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction of December 2021, because that is, if there are connections, that is what is going to make this Ingress more significant or not. So there are very close connections. For instance, well, you were mentioning the nodal axis, and it's impressive because it's falling on the moon of that ingress. But we have the North Node and Saturn very near the moon of the ingress. In Argentina, we had an ingress, a conjunction in which Mars was in the first, and that was announcing a very angry man who would defy power because this Mars is in a square, applying to a square of Saturn, the ruler of the 10th, and that happened. So after this, unexpectedly, someone from the far right was chosen president. But also we see how the moon is in the degree of Venus. So that makes us think that maybe in this first part of the year, there will be a woman who will be important because we have a mutable sign rising. So there are strong connections. It's impressive, you know, the ascendant of the conjunction on the degree of Venus once again. Venus is once again being, but I thought at first maybe a woman, but it could also mean copper, you know, copper. So looking at the ingress, okay, so these are the connections. If I put the two charts together, most of the planets of the ingress fall on the moon, and some of them fall on the ascendant of the Saturn conjunction. Then the MC of the ingress is very near the south node, etc. So we can see close connections. And the key features of the ingress are that emphasis on the first, according to they were holding on SkyScript. The first represents the common people or general state of the nation, the country, etc. And the fourth, look at the ruler of the first, and the 10th in the fourth. So that is land, the owners of it, workers, crops, produce, farming, mining industry, gas industry. And this is impressive because one of the things that happened with the new government is that Argentina has a huge oil reserve that wasn't being exploited, and it began to be exploited last year. Okay, so there we are. And all this is, most of this area is gas and petrol, but it wasn't being exploited. So this is one of the top 5 shale crude oil in this area of the country. And that is being exploited now as a resource. So we could see how the Aries Ingress was showing that there was a dependence of the government on crops or produce from the earth. And that is exactly what's going on. But also the ruler of the fourth is conjunct Venus. Again, I was thinking maybe a woman, but why not copper? And one of the most important, what do you call this, money or economy that is being developed is copper. Exactly that. It's copper. We are having record figures in mining exploration, and that is new. This is the first time that this happens. So I thought it was interesting how that is expressed very clearly by the Aries Ingress. Okay, so that was all. I know there's a lot to talk about today, so I'll keep it short and simple. That's just what I want.
Thank you.
The power of it, the power of symbols.
Yeah, and then I really adore the way you put the Aries Ingress back to the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction. Well, I heard about many astrologers talk about this, but in the practice, we usually just focus on one chart and totally forget. And they're very interesting. So when you mentioned that, I think there's a moon and the Venus has been triggered, and that is all around the world. I don't think it's only in Argentina.
No, this is all around the world. The fact that the North Node and Saturn and Jupiter are in the degree, or very near the degree of the moon of the ingress. I'm sorry, of the moon of the conjunction. So Saturn, the North Node, and Neptune of the ingress are almost on the same degree as the moon in the conjunction, and the eclipse that we had 2 days ago or yesterday was on that, very near that, opposite that degree.
Thank you, Anna.
Yes, just little comment is about that the ascendant of the Aries Ingress is the Chiron of Argentina. Yes, and you mentioned about the whole planets in the first house related to health issues as well. Very interesting. Thank you.
But
Yeah.
also reflecting the sort of fluidity that you're seeing in America, with the Ingress, certainly across Europe, and the high number of mutables in the Ingress chart, which is things are shifting. It's not like you can force the agenda. It's difficult when there's a lot of the angles immutable. So this will not be the chart for the whole year, Maria. It'll just be, for, I think, is it the first 6 months or something?
Exactly. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Maria, bringing us a very interesting view. Because while I never comment about Chiron, and I checked in the EU chart, and I find something very interesting I would like to share with you first. So I will share the EU chart and just few sentences, and then make comment, and then I will hand it to Liz, and Mark, and then Liam. All right. So that's a start. I'm going to share the EU's Aries Ingress chart for EU. So, well, I will say what the lead's going to say. So this is the ascendant on the mutable side. So we check this is valid for half year until the Libra Ingress. But at least, this is very interesting because we have that big fat Jupiter, no, big slim Jupiter. Sorry, it's in Gemini. It's a slim Jupiter rather than big fat Jupiter. Big slim Jupiter right on ascendant. And well, if I'm the beginner, I would say I look nice. That looks very sweet. Jupiter, nothing going to happen. But if you notice that Jupiter is in Gemini, is in detriment, and the ruler of the, ruler of the 7th house and the 11th house, oh, interesting. First, the parliament, and the second, our diplomatship, with maybe China, US, Russia, or maybe between EU and the UK, that would be play a bit in it. Liz, how do you see this chart?
That ascendant, of course, is going to be, it's also Gemini rising in the UK, and it will be a large part of Europe will have Gemini rising, probably France, Paris, Berlin, but probably have, different degrees of Gemini. So what you see, I think, is that Jupiter rising, but a big 6th house, right, which is the army, and Mars in the 2nd, which is money. It's all about money. And the big debate here, the last weeks actually, since the whole bust-up with the Zelensky talks with Trump, there's been this sort of flurry of activity, really, around funding of the military, trying to get, the funds together. I think it's billions that they're trying to raise to increase the European defence. And that has opened up a whole can of worms, really, as well, because as Maria was saying, a lot of Europe is leaning to the right now as well. So in the Netherlands, for example, it's been quite tense this last week because we've got a very strange construction of a government at the moment. And the Prime Minister isn't of the ruling party, the one with the most votes. And there was a big disruption. The Dutch voted in Parliament against freeing up these funds because they don't want to have a shared debt, because there's all these kind of constructions to allow this massive spend. And of course, Pluto in the 9th, which, is like foreign affairs, if you like, countries that are far. You can see, Pluto on the ascendant in the US solar ingress. A lot of it is being fueled by things that are happening in the US. I mean, let's face it, that is what is the root of all of it. But clearly, there's some kind of friction. The 11th house as well, I think, is the kind of almost symbolically the EU. It's all this family of nations trying to, come to group decisions about things. And I think obviously if you listen to someone like Elon Musk, you could say open enemies here on our ascendant. stirring up things in Berlin in the election there, stirring up, in the UK, Tommy Robinson, and, kind of all this fake news, really. So it's really, it's really kind of like the Ingress as a whole. I find it lacking oomph in a way, because Mars is in Cancer, ruling it all. And the retrograde planets, we're heading into a Venus-Sun conjunction, Mercury retrograde. They're all going to go back into Pisces around the North Node and Neptune, and just before the Neptune Ingress, in fact, Mercury's back in their trade. So it's all very difficult, I think, at the moment. And as we were just saying, the situation in the news is changing by the minute. You can, miss one bit of news and you turn the news on and the whole situation has changed. He's revoked the tariffs and you know what I mean? It's flip-flopping all over the place. That's very, I think, Gemini rising and, Trump's a Gemini.
Yeah.
It's kind of quite a difficult situation, I think, for Europe in general, but I do think we'll come out of it all right. I don't see Europe breaking up or anything like that. I don't think so.
Well, yeah, Leanne has some comment. Leanne, what you want to turn on your microphone, join us?
Yeah. I think the ascendant falls on the Sibley Mars, and it falls on Trump's, very close to Trump's sun, doesn't it? So it's no surprise this conflict going on between the EU and the US.
Yeah.
And do you know, I think this is leading up to is just like more autonomy, and perhaps has the EU sat on its own laurels for too long? Has it sat?
Yeah.
And do you know what? I was thinking back to one of the previous times Saturn was in Pisces, and it was back around 1937-ish. And what had happened, Europe had come out of the First World War triumphant, sat back and relaxed. And when Saturn was in Pisces, Hitler was rearming, Hitler was rebuilding. And it's like, and then we got caught short with World War II. And it feels a little bit the same now. The EU has been sat, perhaps just too relaxed about who it can rely on and who it can't. And it's getting this sudden wake-up call, and we can see that Saturn, Neptune, Aries thing on, building up. It's a wake-up call to take charge and have some form of autonomy moving forward. So
definitely. Well, Louisa has something to say. Louisa, please.
That Mars in Cancer, in the second house, reflects beautifully all the discussion that's going on about money, allocating money to armies, allocating money to defend Europe. And of course people, because it's a square to the moon, are not very happy with that, because that's money that's not going to be spent on social programs, etc., etc., etc. So I think this is going to cause a lot of problems.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Grace, yeah. Grace, you are mute. Grace, you are mute.
Okay. I mean, the moon says square Mars and Chiron, and Mars in the second house and the moon in the sixth house. And in the meantime, Mars with Chiron, square Chiron, they are all very strong influence. I mean, something like it's like a fighting or like a defense, and the people get hurt. Or maybe EU in this moment is very, how to say this, senses of failure. It's not really successful. I mean,
okay.
And because of Venus and Mercury retrograde, so it's more like the people look back, think back what happened in this moment of EU.
Yeah.
And for maybe 20 years or 30 years ago, with American, everything it's going very well. And all the countries are friendly, and suddenly they fight each other, and suddenly so care about Trump I mean,
Yeah.
so what happened?
Yeah,
I
it is
don't know,
very,
but
yeah.
it's very
It,
interesting. I mean,
my personal view is it was very interesting if we look at the big mutation, this Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in the air wasn't exactly started in the back to 1980s. And that was, to be honest, from my view, it's a beautiful world. And then now what we see things Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in Aquarius, what's wrong with us? Why we couldn't go back like the 1980s? Everything is so beautiful. But what Maria did suggest, look back this Saturn Jupiter conjunction just trigger something. Well, I want to point out one thing. This Venus is on Chiron. This Venus retrograde is on this big mutations Chiron, and that Grace says, we are kind of a look back. It's retrograde. We look back how progressed we were, but now are we going to step back? And very interesting. Well, we know Pluto is on the Jupiter Saturn. We know Pluto is Jupiter, and the Moon is on Venus. To be honest, this is thanks for Maria to bring this out. This is very interesting. I don't want to waste your time. I would like to who would start, Lian, or shall I let Lian start with this NATO and Ukraine, NATO, and the U.S. defense. So I would say I would let Lian. And then Mark, I will invite Mark and then hand it to Julie. But feel free to join the conversation. All right? Yep, here we are. Lian, you're mute.
Sorry. Sorry, my brain's not functioning very well. So yeah, I've only done one slide tonight. My schedule went a bit this week, as you know. But I think this is a really interesting chart, okay? So this is the chart for the US Defense Department, and it's from Nick Campion's Book of World Horoscopes. So the Defense Department was created by the National Security Act, and that was signed by President Truman. And basically, it provides all the military forces needed to deter war and ensure US security. So it's the Army, the Marine Corps, the Navy, the Air Force, the Space Force, which is going to be interesting going forward. But basically all the armed forces of the US. So considering the turmoil we're in at the minute with Ukraine, Putin, etc., I thought it would be interesting to look at, especially the military side. Okay, so we can see this chart has a very strong sun up there in domicile. It's elevated on the MC, close to Saturn and Pluto. And the Saturn-Pluto conjunctions. We know they're associated with war more often than not. And that particular cycle started on the 11th of August, 1947 at 13 Leo. So not long after this, the Defense Department was set up. Okay. But I think particularly that Pluto and Leo signature resonates with some of the older leaders we have at the minute, doesn't it? Trump, Netanyahu, Putin, they all have that Pluto and Leo. It's like the overlords. It's like who wields the most power, okay? But what I find interesting is that Pluto is, down at the bottom there. It's going to be opposing that sun 3 times this year, February. I haven't had time to go back and check if anything specific happened around the end of February. Well, it did, didn't it? Because all the turmoil's going on at the minute. July, January next year as well. But I think that Pluto opposing this sun, it's very much about challenging the future of the US Defense Department, but how it serves itself, but also how it serves that of the community, i.e. the rest of the world, its allies, the brotherhood, so to speak. So it's now coming into question, is the US actually going to remain a leading protective force for the collective or just for itself? It's quite a fixed chart, isn't it? We can see the sun there forms a fixed T-square with the angles. And there's quite a defensive Moon Jupiter conjunction in Scorpio rising in the first house. So very much about protecting the homeland at all costs. It's do or die in Scorpio. It is. It is. But we see we've got Ceres on the descendant there, and Ceres, I think, is very much acting as a gatekeeper there to the rest of the world, you know, protecting the land and resources of the US. But I feel this chart's quite self-first, which I think Trump is very much projecting at the minute, isn't he? It's just all about what's going to be best for the US. But ultimately, underneath that, it's probably about what's best for Trump. Okay. And of course, what's fascinating, Trump's unaspected Pluto at 10 degrees of Leo sits right on top of this chart. Saturn, Pluto conjunction. Now, I know that's a generational thing, of course, but Trump's been using the threat of withdrawing military support from Ukraine.
Yeah.
All right. And it's not just about the arms, it's about the intelligence. You know, he ceased all the intelligence support to Ukraine. And what I really love in this chart is we've got Mars, Uranus in Gemini in the 8th house. How is that for military intelligence? All the cyber secrets, all the, you know, I just think that's beautifully described by the 8th house there. And of course, that Mars and Uranus sit on top of the Sibley Mars as well, and Trump's sun and Uranus and, yeah, North Node. So Trump is going to be very much tied into the evolution of the you know, the US defense system, without a doubt. But it gives him even more control, doesn't it? You know, if he can just pull away military power and intelligence power from his allies just at the drop of a hat, he's in a huge position of power there. And note also in this chart, we've got Venus and Mercury in Cancer. Trump's got his Venus and Saturn in Cancer pretty much falling on top of those. And they, of course, pick up the Mercury in the Sibley chart. So Trump's incredibly tapped into this chart, I think. What else do we have here? Yeah. So yeah, you know, I don't need to say this, but you can see that Pluto's going to go on to oppose the midheaven of this chart going forward over the next couple of years, and then in a few years beyond that, it's going to be opposite that Saturn Pluto there. But Pluto's coming from the 4th house there, and it's like when we looked at that Ingress chart, Uranus on the IC, the restlessness. I think there's going to be some threat from beneath, from within, you know, with Pluto on that IC, and that could be within the actual internal setup of the Defense Department, but could it be about the Defense Department having a threat from within the US itself, from its own roots type thing? So, you know, and when we think about the broader perspective of this, is there going to be some sort of massive revolution or alteration in the way that we consider war? You know, it's going to be about trade and cyber war, isn't it? And it's going to be about war in space even. How do you protect space? You know, it could even be space war. And, you know, we're already talking about all of these themes in the news. And I think this chart just echoes again everything that we're seeing Trump just plugging into and triggering. So, yeah, I think our collective idea of war is going to be very, very challenged and evolving as we move forward. So, yeah, that's it anyway.
Yeah. Any comment before I hand these to Anna?
Yes, I was watching the opposition Mars-Juno in the resources houses, that maybe he would be ready to break any agreement. in order to have resources from others to fulfill his commitments, but in a very opposition way, as the position is highlighted there. Yeah, it's very tight opposition, and
Yeah, it is.
retrograde. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's mutable, and it's picking up his own chart as well. And I think that reflects the flip-flop that we're seeing all the time. I'll do this one day, but tomorrow I'm going to change my mind and do something different.
Yeah.
I think Trump is going to do that. And I don't think he necessarily uses that deliberately as a tool. I think that's what's going on in his own mind. I think what's going on in the world is just a projection of what Trump has going on internally.
Yeah.
And I think his Gemini Sagittarius axes in his chart, it's just all over the place.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
Liz, you have any comment?
Yeah, I would just sort of find it very striking that we have Saturn Pluto in the 10th house, because of course we are coming into the nuclear age. I mean, the Second World War ended with Pluto on its own ascendant, crossing from the 12th house, and when we were, breaking the atom and developing the bomb and stuff. So it's the superpower, that's the thing, isn't it? Saturn Pluto up there. And as Pluto is now coming into the opposition to the sun there, the whole talk around nuclear power, we can see it in the UK, for example, particularly, not so much in France, because France almost left the NATO because it wanted sole control of its nuclear capacity. But the UK's nuclear capacity is somehow kind of caught up, because a lot of repairs for things are done in America. So you've got this control from quite a dark place, really, in terms of Pluto. And I think as Pluto coming opposite now to the sun, we can see the whole talk about nuclear as just suddenly back on the agenda big time.
Yes. And even I heard about the before I hand it to Jolie, even we heard about the East European country from Poland to the three Baltic countries are ready to withdraw from the prohibited landmine, so they can deploy the landmine across the border against Russia's invasion. That was worrying, because I don't want to say I'm against this idea. Well, you have to protect yourself, but that is really sad. Okay, Jolie, please. You're mute. You're mute.
Sorry.
That's
would
right.
it be okay to just share one really quick chart?
Oh, yes, sure, yes.
Just hold it up, and
I'll stop. Sorry, I'll stop sharing. Can I just say one more thing about that last chart? Because obviously it had the highlighted Leo Aquarius axes. The eclipses are going to move into Leo Aquarius next year, of course.
Yeah.
Anyway,
And that's so literally. So I've got Leanne's the chart that she had. The U.S. Defense Department. This is Pete Hegseth, who's the current Secretary of Defense. Look at it is mind-blowing, right? His Pluto is on the U.S. Defense Department's ascendant. His Neptune is on the Juno. It is just insane. All these, pieces that are overlapping. His palace is on the descendant. What I think is also extraordinary is if I take Pete Hegseth away, just for a moment, imagine the fact that Mars in Cancer is presently transiting, between Mercury and Venus, and Hegseth has just informed his lawyer that he would like them to remake the judge advocate general system. So this is the military legal side in the US. Why? Because he wants to relax the rules of war.
Oh my God.
That's what he's doing. He's remaking the US Department of Defense because he wants to relax the rules of war. Why would you do that if you weren't planning to kick a can down the street and, have it do bad things. I don't know. But all I'm saying is it is extraordinary if you actually put and Hegseth's natal chart, by the way, is AA rated.
Okay, thank you.
This is a AA rated chart. So it is pretty extraordinary. That Pluto on the ascendant is killing.
That is striking. Thank you so much. Yeah, I know why you couldn't help to share that, because that was a wow. Oh my God. I was like, they are trying to remove you as Department of Education. Now I think they may be going to remove you as Department of Defense, I think. Okay, Louisa, before I hand it to Mark. Mark, waiting for so long, but Louisa, yes. You're mute. You are mute.
That he's also a Gemini?
You mean has? Yeah.
Yeah.
Jody, you also mute.
Sorry. Yes,
we have Mercury problem.
Gemini. So I would suggest that instead of having commentators that are economists, this, that, or military specialists, you just have shrinks with multiple personality knowledge, because this is what's going on.
Okay. Well, Mark, are you ready?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I can get the share to work.
Yes, please.
Sharing is not turned on.
Oh, sorry about that. Just 1 second. Yes, here we are.
Okay. Let's try. Okay. Let's see if it works from there. No, that's not right. I might have to. Can I run this from individual charts rather than having to do that? I did have a presentation, but I never have much joy with this system. Let's see. There's a file somewhere. It should be on my screen.
We can see your screen, Mark.
Okay.
Maybe if you just click on the chart, won't it just open?
It's actually a PowerPoint I'm trying to open.
Okay.
That's the whole point. But it's not opening for some reason. Oh, there it is.
Here we are.
Okay. Right. Can you see anything yet?
Not yet. Not yet. Still slow down.
It's looking hopeful though.
It says I'm screen sharing.
Yeah, you are, but we couldn't see the PowerPoint yet.
Do you have to double click on it maybe?
I think he did, but it falls in there.
Okay, try stop share and try again.
Yeah. Okay, before you start, Maria, you mentioned about Mars stationary at same degree of the Mercury of, you mean the U.S. Department?
Yes.
Yeah, U.S.
Yes.
Department.
It's enough. Yeah.
Yeah, thank
Is
you,
it
Mark.
sharing?
We can see. Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
yes.
Okay, yeah, I've not had very much, well, had no time to look at the astrology, but I had a quick look at the history because that quite interests me, and I was intrigued by the themes that have been going on about the break of the transatlantic agreement and America, obviously the whole issue about tariffs and the whole issue about not supporting democracies anymore. So it made me look a bit at the history of this. So I find this chart, which is quite interesting, which is the Atlantic Charter of 1941, which was signed, agreed between Churchill and Roosevelt, who was still the president then. And this was an interesting treaty because it was actually just before World War II broke out, but it was kind of like a post-war vision for the West, if you like, and it included principles like supporting democracy wherever it arose and free trade throughout the world in a post-war world. And that chart there has actually got clearly an interesting Pluto square going on at the moment in terms of where Pluto is right now. And yeah, so I just thought that was quite interesting in terms of that. We've also had Uranus going over the Saturn of that chart as well. So it's been activated in quite a few transits. There's probably a lot more. I've had very little time to look at any of this. But I thought that was an interesting historical context because although it was just Britain and America, it kind of set the trend for where things went. And then another chart I thought was interesting to look at before NATO was the Truman Doctrine. This was President Truman after World War II. Sorry, Liz,
Can you open the screen up a bit, Mark?
Oh, apologize.
It's
Yeah,
very
sorry.
small.
I should have.
Like
Yeah,
I'm sort
okay.
of like this, you know?
It's just I can't see the top of my thing like you normally can. Okay, slideshow from the first page. Okay. Right. Okay.
Yeah, that's
Right. So that was it. That was it there. Okay, so that was the Atlantic Charter chart, which I think is quite interesting. No time on it though. It was signed on a battleship basically off the Canadian coast. Quite interesting at the moment with what's going on with Canada. Pluto on their Aries Ingress. Interestingly, anyway, the Truman Doctrine. This was President Truman who basically said he would step in and basically defend any democracies that were threatened in terms of what might happen to them. So this, you could say this was, well, I mean, obviously American foreign policy's got some dark and shady elements to it as well. We could definitely agree on, but this was perhaps the more idealistic side of it, I suppose. And this chart again has been activated. Obviously, we've had Pluto squaring the Saturn of that chart in terms of where it's been going to, and we've also had we don't know the exact time this chart again, but it probably was round about noon. This was a joint meeting of Congress, basically the president and all the Congress came together to agree this. So this was kind of like something that was kind of his statement, but it was agreed by all the congressmen that were there. So it's also kind of opposing that Scorpio moon, Uranus as well at the moment. So we've got that going on in terms of the chart as well. So yeah, I just think it just indicates a kind of interesting philosophical kind of change. I mean, obviously we're moving up. We're still a bit away from a kind of Uranus return to that chart, but we've obviously got in the previous one I put up. I think it was. Let's have a quick look. I think it was just 2 degrees. 2 degrees Uranus in that chart. Yeah. So there's a cyclical thing going on there too, obviously, in terms of the Uranus. I know it's 0. No, sorry, it's 0. 0 Uranus, which again ties in quite well to the American Declaration, the American Revolutionary War actually happened when that happened. But anyway, I do digress. With NATO, I'm not going to do the Defense Department. NATO, there's a couple of charts, but I think the second one is probably the most interesting. I'm going to jump straight to that.
Sure.
And that's got quite a lot going on, as we were all looking for probably stuff being kicked off with Pluto with the fixed angles. So this has got coming up an MC at 8 Leo again, which is near to guess who? Not too far off anyway, his son at 10, I think, Leo. But also the Scorpio rising chart as well. So that's again tied into Pluto there. And we've got other stuff as well. We've got Chiron, which has been opposing Neptune in that, been opposed by Neptune in that chart as well. And yeah, I mean, that's just, I mean, as I say, I've had next to no time to look at the astrology, so I'm sorry, I apologize to
No, but
done.
That is so interesting. That is really interesting because if you look, we have the recent lunar eclipse right on N.A.T.O's Mercury.
Yeah.
And that is like wow, it's the 8th house ruler and the 11th house ruler. So either ally or going to, straight to the point, maybe going to kill the N.A.T.O. This with this lunar eclipse.
Yeah.
Mars in Cancer as well.
Yeah, Mars is very. It's just we just have the Mars return-ish,
A long one, 3 times. So it's a
3 times.
Yeah,
wow, no wonder.
Because it's gone retrograde, hasn't it? So it's past, gone over it. It'll go over. I think I'm not sure if it goes back that far. Actually, I'm saying that now, but it could well have done. So it's prolonged focus on the 9th house there, ascendant ruler as well.
Yes, indeed. Wow. Yeah. Thank you, Mark. This N.A.T.O. chart, like you say.
Just to point out quickly, is 3 charts, 1947, they're interesting. I mean, Leanne's obviously covered the Defense Department chart that looks very interesting. Also, obviously, the Truman Doctrine. And thirdly, the GATT, the creation of the GATT, the General Agreements on Trades and Tariffs. has also got a chart from 1947 as well. So there's just a suggestion. I might want to have a look more at the GATT chart at some point as well. That's quite interesting.
Definitely.
That was
Definitely. Thank you. Well, Nando, and
Now, just observing that in a few years, 7, 8 years, N.A.T.O is going to have the Uranus return on Cancer. So I think we are going to see some change.
I wonder we have waiting for that long, Nando. I'm just joking. Well, please.
Yeah, I actually just discovered the N.A.T.O 1 chart. Mark, can you go back one, I think? I've actually just discovered this chart, and I find it interesting because it's got Mercury and Venus. So, obviously we're going to have a new Sun-Venus cycle starting here.
Yeah.
Which is what we're coming into now. And I've noticed since September last year, when we had the solar eclipse in 9 degrees, 10 degrees Libra, that the other end of the axis, the Aries side now, is really coming into focus, the axis of war and peace. So there's so much activity around 9, 10, 11 degrees of Aries at the moment, starting with the disastrous Zelensky meeting, and it just, the conjunction of Mercury and Venus, that same degree seems to be being picked up an awful lot in so many charts at the moment that it's kind of just interesting to follow Mercury and Venus over those degrees in relation to the two eclipses, because I think the upcoming eclipse, isn't it going to be, or this year, there's one more coming up on that axis.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure what it means, but I did do a post on Facebook in the Dutch group I have, noting already in February this play between Sun, Moon, Mercury, and Venus. And I'm just at the moment tracing it back and seeing what happened on that date when and in my opinion, it's all going to sort of, so we've got on the 30th of March, Mercury retrogrades back into Pisces conjunct Neptune. And then we get the Neptune ingress directly afterwards into Aries. And then it's actually on the 7th of April that we see Mercury going direct. And then we have, but that degree, starting really with going right back to the disastrous meeting, and then every kind of little little breakthroughs, the Egypt summit in Gaza, the European big meetings, they're all happening around those degrees. So I found it very interesting when I saw this chart today. That those degrees were there. So I'm kind of following this chart now as well for N.A.T.O, because I think it's got something to say.
Definitely. Well, Leanne, do you have something to say, please?
Yeah, just echoing what Liz has said, really. I'm sure both Venus and Mercury are stationed at 10 Aries. And Mercury will station there. And then the eclipse at the end of the month, it's going to be at
9 degrees.
9 degrees Aries. So you're right, those degrees are so being picked up. And it's very close to the UK 1801 descendant as well. And
And it started last year, which, I mean, I was looking at like what was in the news when that eclipse went on in October. And the big discussion then was Gaza, because those peepers had gone off, the pagers. So that was the big story then. But I mean, that's interesting in itself, the way Palestine and, although actually it was again in the picture when Gaza, when Trump came up and sort of talked about the, what was it? The Riviera, the vision of the Riviera. That was Venus into Aries. That was the start of it on the 4th of February. So there's a lot happening in Aries and around those degrees. It's quite interesting just to follow it.
Yeah. Definitely. Before I hand it to Anna, I want to invite Leanne, because Jolie and Leanne has a quick discussion about what's different between the two charts. Leanne, could you give us a very quick explanation?
Oh, yeah. So this chart is when it was signed or came into being, and the second chart is when it was enforced.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Well, Anna, yes.
Yes. The moon of the upcoming Aries Ingress is 6 of Sagittarius, which is the part of fortune of this chart, and the south node of the Truman something, the previous one, which by the way is in a square with the moon of that chart as well.
Yes. Well, yes. Thank you, Anna. Well, Jolie, do you want to do? I think the things you want to share, you already share, or you have something else to share?
No, that was it. The only thing I would add is that I think in terms of what's happening, I mean, Trump was saying to Zelensky that he kept saying to Zelensky, "You don't have any cards. You don't have any cards." But if we really look at what's been happening at breakneck speed over the last couple of weeks, we can really see that it looks like the US is just not in control of their own cards in a lot of ways. And there's definitely this idea that they're using a stick as opposed to carrots. They want to remake the world with them at, preserving American power. But the way they're going about it, as Leanne said, it's not just a shooting war. There's also cyber war, there's capital war, there's a trade war. There's so many different types of wars now that we can have. The trade war is already kicked off. The capital war is about to, descend. So I think in terms of capital movements of money and assets. So I just think that it's extraordinary because Trump and his team think that they're positioning themselves to make America great again. And yet it looks like they're just pissing so many people off. Like even in Canada, you had people in Quebec saying, "We are Canadian." Do you know how hard you have to push the Quebecois to say that? It's extraordinary.
I 100% agree with you. All right. Well, I think I will hand it to Anna first because Anna has something else, and I will come back to if Anna. I will come back to the Ukraine and the Russians, the Aries Ingress chat just quick before we end it. All right, Anna, please.
Okay. Mine is very, very short presentation. Let me know, please, if you see it.
Yep.
Okay, here we go. Let's start with Zelensky and his chart and the day he became president. We have here his chart. He has Ukraine and Jupiter together in the first house. And then we have Kiev here. And when he became president, the sun was close to Kiev. And Ukraine, transiting Ukraine, was with Saturn, which is the ruler of the MC. Then the conflict appeared. If you're laughing now, please believe me that at the end you will laugh more. Okay.
You gotta love these asteroids, haven't you?
Yes, this is the chart again of Zelensky at the time of the invasion of Russia. He has Moscow and Saturn together.
Oh.
And Mercury and Russia together, which means that the ruler of the ascendant is with Russia and the ruler of the midheaven is with Moscow. So he's connected somehow in some way with that country. Kiev with Kiev, and Lilith was with Ukraine, and Ukraine with Jupiter, and Moscow with Lilith, something like that. You have the transit here.
No wonder Trump will say he started war. It's not Putin. It's Zelensky started war. Sorry.
Yeah. So there's a connection of the transiting asteroids with this set of planets here. But that is not the end of the story. For the chart of Ukraine, the country has Moscow in the midheaven. The asteroid Moscow in the midheaven, and the moon and Ukraine together. And the day of an invasion, Lilith and Ukraine were together in somewhere here in the 5th house. No other things. Well, Russia was here at the top, but not making any connection in particular. And then if we see the date of invasion in the Russia chart, we can see here that Russia has Ukraine here, and the day that Russia invaded, Jupiter was close to that asteroid, and Venus and Mars was close to Moscow. here we have that famous conversation.
Ouch.
Pay attention.
Ouch.
Please pay attention, okay? Ready to go? Okay, ready to go. Please pay attention. You have here Ukraine and USA of America. Well, the chart you have Ukraine and USA of America here together. But Ukraine is much more close and tied to Chiron. Ukraine is hurt. No, this wounded that doesn't heal, and America is somehow close there. And Washington is in contact with Uranus, and a little far away is Russia, because Russia was a conversation that created the complication. And the asteroid White House was in contact with the vertex at that day. But that is not all. The transit of that conversation in the chart of the invasion, we have here that White House was with Washington and Lilith with Russia. And Saturn with the White House, and transiting Venus, in which stationed in the 10 degrees of Aries, was in contact with the Chiron. And the asteroid Washington, in which this conversation was held, was in contact with the IC of this event chart. But that is not all. There is more. Donald Trump, he has the asteroid America in Leo, in contact with his Mars, and he wears this red cap saying, "Make America great again," in red. In red, okay? And we have here the asteroid Washington and Ukraine in the second house. And the other rest of asteroids are over there. In the chart of Putin, he has Ukraine and Washington together, and Uranus and America together as well. And the asteroid Russia is at the end of Virgo, in which the solar eclipse will be held. So my sensation and my take is that September will be very heavy, full of news, full of changes. Something in between will happen while this upcoming solar eclipse in September happens. And in the case of Zelensky, he has America and Chiron together.
Yeah.
Exactly what happened. And we observed that Ukraine and Uranus and Pluto with White House. He tried to have he experienced the power in the White House. Yes. And well, we observed this and this, and Washington here. So the thing is that Zelensky will have the solar eclipse in his south node very soon, very soon. And Pluto will be visiting his Sun and Venus in the upcoming years. So probably, I don't think that he will step back. I think that he must be very tired. So I think that in order to continue promoting this exercise of powers, maybe the Trump or Putin will try to make some peace, or not to push him so much. Who knows? Hope that peace will come soon.
Yeah.
And that is all.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you. Well, after Anna's interesting presentation, I really don't want to drag you back to the painful Ukraine. Well, Liz, please. Yes, please.
Yeah, just noting on the chart of Zelensky, because he's got Mercury in the same degree as me, and you can just see that his communication style is so different to somebody like Trump and
Yeah.
Vance, just in terms of, I mean, it was difficult to watch because, he's not using his own language. There's so many obstacles for him to have a smooth conversation. But I think Gemini is so mercurial, and I think JD Vance is, to my mind, he's a bit of a hawk. I look at those eyes and I see his Mars.
Yeah. Yes, but what I observed that it related to Chiron is that sometimes we observe Chiron that is the poor, that is hurt. No, when a person is hurt, it will react. And Zelensky did. He said, "I'm not playing cards. I'm afraid of Russia. You have a beautiful ocean. I addressed you because so he defended himself in a hurtful way. But he made
honestly,
he could
Anna,
not
I was
stop talking
married
in that way.
I was married to a Russian for 10 years, and so I can see the Russian character in Zelensky. I know he's Ukrainian, but there's something in there that you can be your own worst enemy in a funny sort of way, you know? I mean, he would have been so, I think actually, I don't like Keir Starmer much, but I do like his way of dealing with Trump, you know, not reacting to everything, refusing to, you know, just, but actually coming with a different narrative, just putting it out there and just leave, you know,
this was showing his position. He was showing his position.
Yeah.
His position.
But
as we,
have everything easy, I don't have it easy.
Yeah. Well, as we talk about the important things around the Ukraine and Russia, I feel sorry if we don't have a quick look the Aries Ingress chart for both countries. And one thing we noticed in the cave of this year's Aries Ingress chart, we have Cancer rising, and then that means every season will be different way. Let's keep in mind. And the second, we get a Mars in the angular house, in the first house. Well, the lesson 101 from the traditional astrology of like Aries Ingress, this means war. So are we expecting, you know, the things stop and the Trump can really make a peace, or the ceasefire for 30 days? Yeah, only for 30 days maybe, or even not for 30 days, because of this Mars. But the Mars in the first house, very interesting, because Mars is the 11th house ruler, ally. So this ally, I don't know who, because it's a Mars in Cancer. In one way, could be United States, you know, Mars in 4. In another way, Mars in triplicity. Well, I have to speak from Sharon and Maria's way, the Jolie's way. This is a triplicity Mars. So, well, maybe it's the poor UK and the Europe side, like we don't have enough money, but we still try to support. Jolie, please.
I just wanted to jump in. Sorry, this is just a quick anecdote, but after the Trump-Zelensky conversation,
of
course, Vice President Vance was saying, you should be more grateful. You should say thank you. And of course, you know, Zelensky was left somewhat speechless with that. But the next day on Twitter X, we had European leader after European leader saying, we stand with Ukraine.
Yeah.
Literally, Zelensky was saying, thank you in capital letters. Thank you. Thank you. And if you looked at his feed, it was just him saying thank you to basically everyone but the US. So I do think that, you know, it's very interesting having Mars in the first house here, because there is this that Ukraine could galvanize Europe in terms of saying, well, listen, actually, yeah, you're right. This is our problem. Russia and Ukraine are here on our borders. And so we need to sort something out. I mean, on the flip side of it all, of course, so many countries, Germany, for example, are really reliant on Russian gas, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, this is it's a very much a Scylla and Charybdis moment where it's like, how do you walk that narrow line? But I personally, I don't know. I've had so many people say, oh, Europe is going to fall. The EU is going to crash. The EU, you know, and a lot of astrologers say this as well. And it's kind of, I don't know, it's a little bit like saying China has peaked. You know, back in 1972, they said China has peaked. I don't know. It's incredible how even the pundits will get it wrong. So
yeah. Well, before I hand it to Anna, they make some comments say Mars, right?
Yes, Mars is on the UK 1801 moon, isn't it?
Okay.
That's it. Yeah. So ally. I don't know.
Yeah, ally. Yep. Well, Anna, and then I will hand it to Liz.
I forgot to mention that the day of the Zelensky-Trump meeting, Mars squared the asteroid America.
Okay, wow, okay. Make them really great again. Then, well, Liz, yes, Liz, please.
The only thing I would say, which we could have looked at, would maybe be the Aries Ingress for Moscow. You know, what's happening there, because when you kind of like listen, you know, I mean, Russia seems to have like what you call a war economy. I mean, it's not doing incredibly well, actually, you know, in terms of its own economy. And I do wonder at all the warmongering that's going on, because that's what I would call it. you know,
Yeah.
in how far and how able is Russia to able to like really attack the Europe, you know, which I think our combined economies is bigger, you know, it's we could put up a good scrap, I think. So maybe it's just that it's not going to be, as Leanna said earlier, and I think I agree, the boots on the ground wars belong to the Jupiter-Saturn cycle in Earth. The
Yeah.
Jupiter-Saturn cycle in air, it's very much going to be about cyber, it's going to be about drone warfare, space warfare,
Yeah. Yeah.
intelligence, you know,
Yeah.
it's going to be a different kind of warfare. And this Mars in Cancer looks a bit old school.
Yeah. Yeah. Probably the last one, you know, last war in the
Yeah.
Earth's
Yeah. Yeah.
mutation, you know. Well, you would not surprise if we turn this chart to Moscow.
Yeah, I think it would be interesting to look. You see, Mars is similar to Ukraine, right?
Yeah, it's right on the ascendant.
Mars
It's right on
rising.
the ascendant. That's why when they call for the peace talk and they say ceasefire, well, Putin is not 100% agree, and we all know it. We all know it. It's
And we
very
also, yeah, we know Saturn Neptune is the cycle
yeah,
for Russia, and we're coming into that. I mean, come the summer, those two planets are going to be with like a less than a degree apart.
yeah.
So, you know, the ground is shifting and we'll get there. It might take until the conjunction next year, but things are moving, you know, that's for sure, into a new, morphing into a sort of new setting, which is what Saturn Neptune, I think, will bring about.
Yeah. Okay, I will hand it to Louisa and then Jolie. You have something to say. All right, Louisa first.
Saudi
You
Arabia was trying to get to some kind of compromise regarding Ukraine. And then on the very day that Zelensky flew there, he also ordered 300 drones to attack Russia, which puzzled me because when you attack Russia, you don't attack Gandhi or Mother Teresa of Calcutta. You attack Putin, as you can see through this chart. So
yeah.
all these peace talks for me seem meaningless, absolutely
Mm-hmm.
meaningless. And now seeing this Ingress chart, even more.
Yeah, agree. Jolie?
I just wanted to say that I think a lot of people, again, were expecting that the Russian economy wouldn't be able to sustain.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, because China has, fostered further relations with Russia, you've got India buying gas
Mm-hmm.
from Russia, Germany, etc. So the Russian economy has actually proven to be more resilient than I think people in the West would like to admit
Yeah.
themselves. But I did find it very funny that, obviously that there's all these talks about ceasefire going on, and
Yeah.
first time since the war began, you have Putin showing up at a press conference wearing fatigues, almost like he's imitating Zelensky. But, he's saying, oh, yeah, maybe we can have a ceasefire, but he's wearing military costume. It's like that difference between, watch what I do as opposed to watch what I say. So I think it's
Wow.
very interesting.
That is so interesting. That is a really interesting observation because yes, he usually will wear the suit jacket, but now he wears things like Zelensky. That is very interesting. Well,
Sorry,
thank you.
just one point, Russ.
Yes, please.
And I think you can see that in the top of the chart for that the Aries Ingress in Russia. You have Saturn, which before Neptune came along was the planet of illusion. You have North Node, which is again illusion, but illusion in the realm of like spies and intelligence. And then you have Neptune, which is the modern planet of illusion. So there's a lot of like deception, illusion. It's not what you think it is going on with the Aries Ingress for everybody.
Definitely. Well, definitely. Well, thanks everyone. What an amazing discussion. Everyone chipping, everyone just join to put your idea, and we didn't cover all around the world. There's a lot of corner we haven't covered. For example, we really also care about Palestine and Israel. At least even proposed to want to lead that discussion, but we realize probably we short of time could give a fair justice discussion about that. So if I think we're probably going to put it in next month to focus on there. If there's nothing, I wonder, I wonder we will have a quiet month as an eclipse and everything coming up. We will definitely give a chance to have a very good deep discussion around Israel and Palestine. But today, I thank everyone. Thank you, Louisa. Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Leanne, Jolie, and Anna, Maria, Nando, Grace, and Mark. Thank you, everyone, bring this amazing opportunity to discuss the chart around all around the world, US and Russia, Ukraine, EU, and the UK. Thanks, everyone. Well, see you next month. Bye-bye. And Argentina. Yes, I forget. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye,
Bye. Thanks,
everybody.
Rod. Bye.
Bye.